but it wasn't all shortcomings. There was a lot of good that came from the fiscal year 22 NDAA. Holistically, our military and government relations team went through the bill. We identified 74 total provisions of interest. There were 52 provisions of support, 15 provisions we were neutral to, and 7 provisions that we opposed. If you're looking for more information on which those provisions were, specifically on neutrality and opposition, please go and look through the executive summary and the grassroots guide for more information. But in looking at some of the gains, we were able to secure a 2.7% pay raise in accordance with the Employment Cost Index, ECI, to sustain pay comparability with the private sector. Now, at the headquarters, we know that inflation will exceed 2.7%. It's estimated to be anywhere from actually 6 to 8%. But just know that for 23, the president had just unveiled his budget request actually earlier this week at the time this was recorded. And so for fiscal year 23, what we're looking at right now, according to the president's budget, is a 4.6% pay increase, which is the largest in a generation. Executive Director Reed had actually authored to President Biden prior to the budget submission, at the bare minimum requesting, urging that the president put a pay raise in accordance with ECI, but preferably higher. And we're continuing to look at that as Congress goes through its relative processes in the budgetary process. Another provision of support that we were able to see through the process was the establishment of a basic needs allowance, BNA for short. We're looking at ways to combat reported food insecurity in the field, and certain eligible service members will be able to have access to the basic needs allowance. If you're looking for more information on how that eligibility criteria is codified, please go through the pay compensation allowances section of the fiscal year 22 NDAA executive summary and grassroots guide. Medical billet cuts have been temporarily suspended. This is an issue that we've been working on for the past couple of years, actually. A couple of years ago, actually, one of our annual resolutions that was voted on unanimously by AFSA delegates in the field at our legislative forum was to suspend medical billet cuts. So we're happy to report that medical billet cuts have been temporarily suspended. We're just waiting on more reporting requirements that DoD and GAO would need to make. We anxiously await to see what that looks like, but rest assured, medical billet cuts, which fall under that greater umbrella of TRICARE reconfigurations that we're seeing, MTF right sizing, medical billet cuts within that have been temporarily suspended. One of the big things that we've seen on our platform, we talk about it, catastrophic and bereavement leave. The fiscal year 2022 NDAA was home to the creation of a new category of leave, that being bereavement leave. This is an issue that was pursued by the AFSA heavily. It's been on our platform for quite some time now. So now, under certain circumstances, which are further outlaid in the executive summary, service members will be eligible to take up to 2 weeks of bereavement leave, which will allow them to mourn the loss of their loved one and ultimately be on a pathway to mental health recovery. So category of bereavement leave was created. Reserve incentive pay parity for certain members of the Guard and Reserve who are performing tasks and duties and mission requirements that are very similar to their active duty counterparts. This is something that has been endorsed by a number of military coalition organizations. This was an initiative pursued by the AFSA in conjunction and alliance with the military coalition, and it also got vocalized support during congressional hearings from senior defense leaders. So incentive pay parity for those in the Guard and Reserve who are performing similar and identical missions to their active duty counterparts. Let's talk about TRICARE. There were no new fee increases for TRICARE beyond those already scheduled. We are looking to get after eliminating the TRICARE Select Enrollment Fee that came to be in 2021 initially. This is something that we're working at with Senate Bill 625. We have a call to action out there. We have an advocacy campaign on our Legislative Action Center for that. So I encourage you to please go to the Action Center, write your elected officials in support of that legislation, which would eliminate the TRICARE Select Enrollment Fee for enrollees who enlisted prior to 2018. So visit our Action Center, write your elected officials in support of that. But for the fiscal year 22 NDAA, no new TRICARE fees beyond those that were already scheduled. Let's talk about suicide prevention efforts. Unfortunately, tragically, suicide in the military as well as in the veteran population continues to increase and increase steadily. There are a number of mental health resources that DoD and the services provide, and we highly encourage you to seek those out if you are not in the best of places. But ultimately, the system is failing if those numbers continue to increase. And so, similar to what we saw with sexual harassment and sexual assault reform efforts, we will now see with the formation of an independent review commission that will take a look at some of those programs that exist, see if they really work, solicit information from service members about their experiences, and try to come up with recommendations for the Secretary to consider to implement enterprise-wide. And so an independent review commission will be set up. This is a provision that the AFSA wholeheartedly supported with direct reinforcement and lobbying efforts. And we are really looking forward to seeing what the findings are from the independent review commission, what those recommendations are to the Secretary for consideration.